Hi everyone. So I finally decided to make a small video about our multidimensionality. I've been thinking about this and in a way experiencing it, even though not fully, um, for the past 3 years, because I've been inner journeying with the intention to explore the greater dimensions. And as I learned, we all exist on all these different levels, or rather states of consciousness. As one of my spirit guides, my feline friend, very wise feline friend, told me, it's states of consciousness, that I shouldn't view dimensions so in such a hierarchy, because that's the kind of matrix way, that's this world, that's this dualistic 3D world. We are taught that everything is like this, I'm so allergic to this the pyramid of consciousness, or like the different levels. So he said it's rather the states of consciousness, and we can tune into our seventh dimensional self at any time, or to our fifth dimensional selves at any time. It's just when we realize that we are in parallel in all these dimensions, and that it's just a wider perception of reality or narrower perception. And also that we tend to forget about the source, the narrowest, but it's the base dimension. It's the source of the absolute, which then manifests in the greater dimensions, such as the ninth. And it's like the source and the absolute of the divine, or God with big G. And we tend to forget about that, and we tend to also forget about the first dimension. I mean, in the spiritual circles, it's all about the greater awareness. But if you forget about the source, then it's really hard to get the great awareness. And when I journeyed with the intention to explore these various dimensions, it was I could perceive as far as the seventh. And then I realized that my consciousness in this 3D incarnation is really limited to understand what's beyond. I can theoretically understand it, but to experience it, my consciousness, I suppose, would have to be greater, and that I basically shouldn't try to understand something that my current brain is incapable of interpreting in this reality, in this 3D reality. So I can only speak from my experience and from what I've been researching during my inner journeys, or from what my spirit guides told me from these greater dimensions, or my dear ones on the other side that are in the greater awareness, or my feline friends who are from these amazing fifth dimensional worlds, so they are able to better communicate what is there to me, to my current incarnated part of me, let's say. So from my experience, the first dimension is like the source of light and darkness. It's like this duality of yin and yang, like the light and dark. And it's the place, it's like the core. It's the core, and it's the center through which we reach the dimension zero really easily, and then we can go into any of the other dimensions and our multi-dimensional selves. I see it really like the energy field, or like our auric field, that we have all these layers, multi-dimensional layers. And so we can at any time, through the source, through the first dimension, through the core, if you will, we can go and travel or tune, maybe rather tune into these different states of wider consciousness. And the second dimension, again, like I don't do hierarchy of like what is better, worse, what is lower, higher, because that's a construct of the matrix, and it's a very manipulative construct. So the second dimension, and I know that in some spiritual literature and spiritual teachings, we also have this pyramid of like the different levels. In my experience, the second dimension is the shapes and codes of creation that we work with. So I understood why sacred geometry and why magic symbols, or why the runes are so appealing to us, because that's the second dimension. It's like the main building blocks of this third dimension. And it's so close to us because we work in the 2D world very often. Even when we look at the computer screen, it's 2D, even though we are seeing 3D images, it's still 2D. Or when we, artists work with the second dimension a lot, when they draw or paint, or when we write, when we read, it's all 2D. And so we are very used to working with the second dimension. And when I look at it in this sense, when I compare it, I look at it like this, like that I'm in 3D looking at the second dimension, and I have a greater awareness than, for example, a figure in a 2D painting that is just there and is maybe not aware of that it's in the room of many paintings with many other 2D depictions. So the second dimension is really also, because it's so close to the first dimension, so it's really powerful. And the symbols and the geometries that we are all made of, and that this world is made of, is like kind of the key to the core, or to the center. And the 4D, or the fourth dimension, each time I went there, I felt a bit it felt a bit alien to me, but then I understood why, because the fourth dimension, from when we incarnate into this matrix, this false copy of the original Earth, the 4D is quite tricky. So I tend to skip into my 4D where I feel comfortable, into my parallel world, because there the 4D is free, and it's not there are not these tricks of the matrix. So when I learned that, then I understood that the fourth dimensional reality is really wonderful, because that's where we work with time creatively. So we can travel in time, we can explore various timelines of our world, and we can also create these time capsules, as I call it, like that we encapsulate a certain moment and we can return to it again and again whenever we want to, so we can re-experience something wonderful. Like when we capture a photograph or a movie here in 3D, there you can capture the whole moment and relive it if you wish. You can also create these time loops if certain experience is maybe not understood, or if you want to view a certain experience from more angles, you can kind of loop yourself in that situation. And in a way, I understood that this matrix is in a way a time loop, because it's kind of a diversion from the original timeline. And it's like, that's why we always repeat the same cycles and mistakes, it seems, in this world. And the fifth dimension is my favorite, because that's where we create our own realities. That's where we create our own worlds. And as I understand it, the worlds and the nature in the worlds and the architecture, everything is a reflection of our spirit. So it's a part of us. But then we can invite our dear ones, our dear spirits, to kind of come and play. It's like in the 3D worlds, we, build homes and we invite people to come over. Over there, we invite the souls to come into our world and manifest as what they like. And usually we have the codes and the access to the worlds of our loved ones, of our soul group, or we create a world together. So there are endless possibilities of worlds, and there are also, I call it the prime reality, because that's where the 3D worlds are kind of stored and dreamt in a way. So many of my departed loved ones, they have their like 5D world, which is like their spirit home. And that's also when I journey, when I inner journey, I often go to these various spirit homes that I created or that I co-created with my soul group. And so there are various heavens, if you will, and there are there can be various hells, because it all depends on the state of consciousness and the vibration of the spirit that creates these worlds. So it depends what you dream into existence. If you dream into existence a beautiful world or a very negative world. And I again look at it just like when we create in the 3D or the third dimension, we can create various art pieces, for example, or various stories or storylines that are either really positive or really negative. So it depends on our creativity. I often wondered where the astral fits in. And since I didn't know, I went into a deep study of what the astral actually is and where the word comes from, where the concept of astral travel or astral worlds comes from. And from what I learned, it seems like, astrum is star. So, of course, it was used just for as a word for space or for universe, the place of stars. But then it was around the turn of centuries, 19th and 20th century, where the Theosophic Society started to work with the terminology such as astral level, astral worlds, astral projection, or astral travel. But they viewed it, and especially Madame Blavatsky, who was like the main person in this Theosophic Society, they described it as kind of this in-between. It's not the goal of the spirit to dwell there. It's kind of the in-between incarnation, maybe where the souls wait for another incarnation. So that, to me, from my perspective now, or from what I've experienced, it seems like it's still a part of the matrix, the astral. So you're still not completely free there, and you may it's all, the astral or the in-between seems to be very much about the emotions and what you believe, the belief system. When I read the books by Barbara Ann Brennan, it clicked to me, together with my experiences, what it might be, that it's really this in-between where our belief system really decides what we do there. So it's like, I suppose it's something between 4D and 5D, or maybe it's partially the 5D where we already like dream these worlds, but we cannot fully manifest them because maybe our belief systems are holding us back. Or perhaps the belief system is that we can do whatever, and then we can easily go into the wider states of consciousness to create our homes, our worlds. But it's very much about the belief system. And Barbara Ann Brennan said that that's why we can create various or co-create various versions of heavens based on our belief system, and various hells based on our belief systems. And if we believe that we have to return to pay some debt or to pay off karma, then we do that. It's all based on the belief system. If we believe that we go to our spirit home and we know it, our spirit home in the 5D, then we go straight there. So it's very much about bridging. She's recommending, Barbara Ann Brennan, to build this bridge between the astral or the in-between and the real, the prime reality of the 5D, or that's how I interpreted it, as that we build this bridge to be able to reach our greater awareness without getting stuck in the in-between. And I suppose that's the rainbow bridge also from mythologies and from various spiritual literature. But all these things, I kind of put them together later because I don't like to be influenced in positive or negative sense, just to have a free experience of these places. And then I like to read about if people experience something similar, to kind of have some proof that it's not just my own experience. I like to have a proof that there were other people that experienced this. And it's wonderful how then it all comes together. And I very much resonate with what Barbara and Brennan is describing in her books. And also I resonate so much with contemporary authors such as Isabella Green and David Icke and Matthias De Stefano. I feel like they have really similar views on these topics. So it always makes me so happy to find that there's some proof out there. Because of course, when you journey like this alone, then you start to think or feel a bit alone in it, a bit lonely, and maybe you cannot discuss it with everyone. So then it's so wonderful to see that there are other people experiencing this out there. And I suppose this is what it's about. It's time to explore these multi-dimensional versions of us and our multi-dimensional being, which is just always in connection with the divine, with the absolute. And just to continue in the sixth dimension, I had very interesting experience when I journeyed to my sixth dimensional self, or when I tuned into my sixth dimensional self, because I became aware of the different multiverse reality and of the amazing vastness of realities, or of the different worlds, of the different parallel worlds, whether they were in the fifth dimensional, fourth dimensional, or three-dimensional levels, or in the source. It was like a greater awareness, and I was also aware of that I can go into the most miniature microcosm and explore that, or spread out into the all these amazing parallel realities and worlds. And I understood that in the sixth dimension, we probably all kind of co-create these worlds, these realities. And it seems like that's where our divine spark is of the, when we are artists or creators, we tune into that a lot, because we want to create. It's this desire to create. While in the seventh dimension, I felt it's more like a guardianship of these different created worlds. And many of my incarnated animal spirits, they tell me that they like to go straight to the seventh, because it's like a guardianship of the creation, that they maybe don't enjoy so much the creation itself, but they like to protect it. And it's I feel in the seventh dimension, I feel when I go there, my consciousness sees it as kind of an impressionistic painting, because it's all these kind of colors, everything blends together. There's not like, there can be solid shapes, but there doesn't have to be. It can just be all like swimming through colors, and sound is really profound there. So it's like swimming through colors and sounds and these wonderful vibrations that feel very healing, and just like this omnipresent love and healing and guardianship. I suppose it's the dimension where the angels, like the real angels, protectors, not the false angels, like the real angels and all these like healers tune into and come from, because it just feels like it's this motherly love and guardianship and support of life, of the variety of life from the different realities or the different dimensions, whether they are narrower or wider perception dimensions. And with my limited 3D awareness, it's really hard for me to journey to the 8th and 9th. Maybe that will change. I'm slowly progressing. So I'm not saying like that, I cannot describe everything. Of course, I'm not going to pretend that I know it all. I can only describe what I experienced during my inner journeys, or when I'm in conversation with my greater awareness, or with the greater awareness of my dear ones or my spirit guides. And the 8th dimension, I see it kind of like this kind of net that keeps everything together in a protective shield. It's not that it would prison something, not like a web or net, like in a sense that it would like keep something and it cannot move forward, but it's more like a protection of creation. And I see it as these like sparks of light that are creating a whole reality. And it's really hard to describe, but I'm aware of that everything is kept for a reason. And then in the ninth dimension, I sense like the great awareness, the absolute of all these multi-dimensional worlds and beings and existences. It's like this wholeness. And the 10th is already the source again. So it's like the wholeness and the source. And I see it really when I visualize it with my 3D brain. And again, very much, brain that is used to the 2D creativity. I see it as the torus or the toroidal field or the energy field, because all these multi-dimensional layers, they kind of fit one on the other. And I also imagine it as layers of onion, for example, where like each layer has its function and together it's an onion. It's narrower and greater perception of the same thing. And in this matrix, it seems like we are cut off from our greater awareness, but there are different parallel 3D worlds or universes where we are aware of that and we can work with that. And I think that's where the legends and stories about magicians or magic comes from, because the beings from these parallel worlds are in constant connection with their multidimensionality, so they can affect time, they can affect space, they can shapeshift, they can heal easily. That's their 7th dimensional self. So it really very much depends. Like you can be a multi-dimensional person in a 3D world. It's just that in this matrix, our consciousness is limited to the 3D perception and maybe to the 4D perception. But it's harder to understand the wider layers of our energy field, of our auric field. And I suppose only when you do it willingly and you willingly reconnect with your multidimensionality, you can begin to understand what you really are beyond this illusion.